We are the Lincoln Journal Star editorial board, and we're with City Council candidate Eric Burling. He's running for one of the 3 at-large seats in the May general election. Eric, thank you a bunch for joining us this morning. We're going to have our editorial board members introduce themselves, and then we will launch into our questions. I'm Dave Bundy, the editor here at the Journal Star. John?
I'm John Schreier. I'm one of our assistant city editors here, and I've been on the editorial board just shy of 4 years now.
And he's right out in the middle of the newsroom, so he's going to try to talk in a hushed voice and try to keep all the craziness behind him from
The mute button is great.
Yeah. Kent?
Hi, I'm Kent Walgamon. I write about arts and the entertainment, and I've been on the editorial board 12 years because I'm old.
Well, maybe it made you old. Maybe it's
Maybe both.
Robbie?
My name's Robbie Estes. I'm the controller at the Journal Star, and I've been on the editorial board about 2.5 years.
So we're all the unreasonable news people, and he is the responsible financial guy that keeps us from doing dumb things.
I might get along better with him.
Well, I think we'll all get along fine. So, Eric, the first question I have is, from our standpoint here in the newsroom, the last year in particular has not looked like a particularly fun one to be involved in public service, elected office, city council, really elected office on any level. Why do you want to run for city council? Why do you want to serve on the city council? And then what is it about your personality and your experiences that has prepared you to serve?
Okay. Well, I would actually say the last year has been what's actually inspired me to try to run for office. The last year has been tough on a lot of people, but I think most of all, it's not the COVID that's bothered me. It's our cancel culture, and it's the division that we seem to have right now in America, and that's been what's really inspired me to run. I see a lot of. It feels like we're bringing racism back as a fashion trend, and I think that's a huge problem. I see kids being taught to hate America, and I believe that our students in school should not be taught that America's got all that nasty stuff in its past, at least not until they're old enough to actually understand what's going on. With COVID, I understand there's lots of people that are on both sides of that issue. Should we shut down the country? Should we not shut down the country? And honestly, I kind of understand both arguments. But I feel, at least from my perspective, that we've been in this state of emergency for too long, and that it's time, and has been time for a long time, to get us back to normal, and at least work towards that. So last year has actually inspired me to get interested in politics, interested in governing, and run for office. And my past experience in life that's prepared me for running, I think is a lot of my work with students and my work with offices on the other side of the world. So my wife and I, we own our own international education consulting company. We started that 12 years ago, and we've grown that from absolutely nothing to one of the top education consulting firms in Vietnam. We have offices in Hanoi and offices in Saigon, and our headquarters is here in downtown Lincoln. And for the last 12 years, we've grown that company. We've worked hard to connect universities and schools in America with students in schools in Vietnam, and connected students in Vietnam and parents with schools here in America. And managing offices on the other side of the world where they don't all speak English, and they have different budgets, different marketing strategies based on the different cultures, north to south, and along with obviously the different culture we have in America, it's allowed me to really understand and appreciate the differences in cultures among all people. And obviously American culture, Vietnamese culture is much different than the different cultures we have, I think, just here in Lincoln. But still being able to appreciate somebody's background and understand their perspective, I think is one of the skills that I've developed in addition to my finance and programming and that kind of stuff. But being able to understand and appreciate the difference of opinions, the difference of perspectives. And I've been called by my friends a contrarian quite often, because I just like to take the opposite the opposite opinion of whatever they have, just to hear their argument, even if I agree with them, because I think it's important that we make decisions based on everybody's beliefs. We got to take into account everybody's opinions and the facts, and then make decisions that actually represent I think the majority is probably the best way to say that.
All right. Well, we will watch with bated breath the cat behind Kent, just to make sure nothing bad happens. All right. So, Eric, what do you think? And again, you've answered some of these questions in 80 words or less for the voter's guide. So this is a chance to answer them in 82, 83, 183 words, whatever. If we ask something repetitive, but what do you think are the most important issues that the city council faces? And they can be sort of broad, like some of the things you've already mentioned. They can be a particular pothole that has claimed your last 3 tires in the last 3. What are those issues?
Yeah, not the same pothole. If it was the same one, I think I would have avoided it. Although the one at 27th and Sewell gets me every time, because you're going down the hill and you can't see it coming, and it seems to just show up when you least expect it. But yeah, let's see. So I think the biggest issues, number one, has to be public safety. And we've talked about this a lot, I think all the candidates in all of our forums. And the reason is because our police force is dwindling. We have more officers leaving. We don't have enough police officers here in Lincoln. And we don't even have an active, a police chief right now to get our department under control. And from the people I've talked to, they are most concerned about our public safety. Where I live in a nice, I think a nice part of town. And, during the pandemic, I had somebody walk into my house and take my wife's purse. Called the police, took them about 15 minutes to get to my house. And by the time they took down all the notes, I had already seen where the credit card had been used at. So I went to that place. The officer had left our house by that point. I went to Walgreens to check it out. They wouldn't give me the footage to see. And I called the officer to let him know. And he's already off work for the day and said he'd check in the morning. And, I don't know if more officers helps with that, but I just feel like there's been an uptick in crime that's affected me personally. And the lack of officers that we have in our police department, I think is something that needs to be addressed. Obviously, with the pandemic, we have to focus on economic development. We have to focus on recovery for businesses that have been suffering for the last year, primarily the entertainment and restaurant industry. And I imagine our hotel and tourism industry as well has suffered greatly. Of the restaurant managers I've talked to, they've struggled a lot last year and are starting to pick back up. And so I think the city council can do a good job of helping those businesses or encouraging more people to get out and start living their lives again. Our restaurant industry, our entertainment industry can't be successful without people going out of their homes, without people going there and actually eating and enjoying life again. The state of emergency that we're in now, I think hurts with that. The mask mandate obviously hurts with that. And I think those are things that need to be addressed. My background's in education, so that's something I'd also like to focus on, although I think that's less of a responsibility of the city council. I'll probably avoid that for now. And then transparency within our government is another issue that I think is super important. My background is actually in computer science. I'm a software engineer. I develop, and I have been extremely disappointed with my ability to access what our city council has been doing. And when I go online to their website to look through their agendas, and I try to search, I want to know what they've been doing. I'm relatively new to this. I think you all know that. And without being informed on all the issues, it's hard for me to answer a lot of questions. So I've been on their site. I've tried to go through the past agendas. Well, their agendas only go back to 2018. So I can't search anything before that. Additionally, when I try to search, it doesn't even work. No matter what search term you type in, it just says no results. So I went through, I downloaded all those documents. I wrote my own search tool to search through them. So at least I can do that for the last couple of years. But I just feel like our government has no transparency and accountability when the citizens of Lincoln can't actually access the agendas, can't access agendas before 2018 or search the ones that are there now. So those are some of the issues that I would like to address.
How has COVID influenced your, or has it influenced the way you look at, what city government ought to do, what city government ought to be, how people ought to be able to interact with city government?
Sure. Yeah. So, one of my beliefs is that less government is the best government. So I feel that there's a little bit too much government overreach right now all around the country. And not just because of COVID, but with COVID here in Lincoln, I feel like there has been too much overreach. I don't feel like a private business should be required to make its customers wear masks. I just don't agree with that at all. If a private business says you don't have to wear a mask and people don't want to go there because of that, then that's their choice. So I'm completely against our government overreaching and getting into private businesses and telling them what they can or can't do. I think that's too much. And I think that we as citizens are responsible enough and informed enough that if we know a business isn't going to require a mask and we feel that we want to wear a mask, then we just won't go to that business. And I think that's a decision that needs to be left to the individual. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, if
Okay.
that's all you want to say on that one, that's fine. No, I appreciate that. You already had talked about it at some length. We're, as a news organization, of course, we're big fans of transparency too.
Mhm.
Other issues that seem to be important right now are, with transparency comes accountability and accessibility for constituents. Has the city council done enough to be accessible to the public? And if elected, what would you do personally? What would you want done in terms of policy to make any changes?
Sure. I think that was the second part of that last question, right? I think that I got that. Yeah. So, going down to the city council now, you can't sit in the chamber. I know a lot of people are upset about that. But honestly, we can still be there. We can still see on the TVs and we still have access. At least now we do. I know before that they had removed that access. So I think that's a step in the right direction. And, as I said before, there are people who still want to wear masks, who still want to social distance. And I think that it's responsible of our government to still require the social distancing within the city council chamber. I know that a lot of people disagree with that, but I think that it is important that everyone has a chance to go down and interact with our local government. And for those people who still feel the mask and the social distancing is important, we have to still support their preferences there in the council chamber and limit the space so that we have that 6 feet of distance between the people that want it. And when I've been down there, they've got a room set up outside of the chamber. They've got the lobby area as well with the TV. So you still have access. You can still get in there and talk. And I think that that's at least enough for now until we can remove the mask mandate and we can then start to fill that chamber with people who are interested in participating in local government again. And I would like, again, for us as citizens of Lincoln to have more access to our representatives. And you could probably argue that not many people in Lincoln actually care enough and want to participate enough. At least that's sort of the sense that I get is walking around neighborhoods. Most people don't even know there's an election, didn't know there was an election a week ago, don't know there's a local election coming up in May, and really just look at national politics. And right now, I can't tell you how we can engage more citizens of Lincoln to be a part of it. But I know that if I'm elected to city council, I plan on making a website for the constituents, all of Lincoln, to log in with their name and address, and then give me direct feedback for me to be able to publish my rationale for every decision that I make, because I think it is important that we're accountable to the citizens of Lincoln and not just to a select few people in Lincoln.
Okay. I want to go back to something that you said early on, and then I have one question at the end and one question now, and then we'll see if other edit board members have anything. But early on, you said that racism was back as a fashion trend. Do you believe that that racism exists in Lincoln? I mean, you're, as an at-large council member, you're representing the whole city. I mean, is racism an issue that Lincoln needs to deal with, or do you not think that there is a problem with it in town?
I think there still exists. I think racism still exists everywhere in the United States, but I don't think it is to the extent that our media and some people want to say that it exists. That's sort of what I meant there. When I grew up here in Lincoln, going to school, we weren't taught to look at the color of somebody's skin. You know, I didn't think about that at all. And I think as we start to put more emphasis on skin color and race, people start to look at it more, and they start to actually take that into account when making decisions. And I think that's wrong. You know, when you apply to college, you put your race down, and some races have preferential treatment over others, and I think that's wrong. So that's one thing that I think should be addressed on a national level. Here in Lincoln, yes, I know that there is still racism here in Lincoln, and you know, my wife is Vietnamese. I can't say that she's ever experienced racism directly, and I work with a lot of Vietnamese students here, and I know in going to school sometimes they get, you know, you get picked on for having an accent or picked on for looking different. But you know, to the level that happens in high school, I think that that's not really what we're talking about, because you know, in a high school, everybody gets picked on for any reason at all, and that's just part of growing up. And I don't think that's actually race related. In terms of how Lincoln treats citizens, I think Lincoln is a place that is full of great people that are accepting and friendly to everyone. And I'm sure there are outliers here in Lincoln, but I don't know any of them personally. And I would be happy to have conversations with those that feel that racism is a significant issue in Lincoln and be able to listen to them. Because the people that I talk to don't feel that it is a significant issue in Lincoln. But as a representative of all of Lincoln, I think it would be important for me to hear from those who do, and to be able to make decisions based on, you know, all sides of the issue instead of just my limited understanding of what's actually happening in Lincoln.
All right. Anybody else on the board have a question? Usually Kent's the first one to unmute. He always is.
I'm interested in what your thoughts are on the climate action plan, and in conjunction with that, specifically the Salt Valley floodplain development issue, whatever you want to call it, and how those two might work together.
Sure. And so I spoke against the climate action plan at the city council a few weeks back, just because I feel like it's too much government overreach. It's not that I don't believe in climate change. Of course I believe in climate change. Of course that I look at the facts and see what's happening. But I don't believe that our government at this point should be mandating what individual citizens do with their own homes and what they should be doing with new construction. And part of that plan, you know, is going to be requiring high efficiency units in all new construction, requiring EV ready garages, actually looking at making plans to cut down trees if your neighbor wants to have a solar panel on his roof. And I feel like that's way too much government overreach. And it's going to make housing less affordable in Lincoln by pushing those sorts of restrictions. And I think every single candidate for city council right now has spoken at length about how we need more affordable housing. And the climate action plan is going in the opposite direction there. In terms of what the plan can do and actually supporting action to limit climate change, I think that at this point makes more sense for individuals than for cities. And the main reason behind that is because it's just not cost effective right now. Solar panels are not cost effective. Solar energy isn't. It's more expensive than coal. And I understand, you know, the rationale behind switching, but I just don't feel like we should be investing in technologies that will be obsolete in 5 years, that will be overtaken by better and better tech. In terms of the flooding, So I went through the data. I went through I think Olson had done the study. I'd have to go back and see who did it. There was the study on the Salt Creek, and the what people seem to be saying is that we're getting worse and worse amounts of water flow through the valley there, through that creek, and that doesn't seem to be the case, as backed up by the graph. The graph goes back to 1950, and it shows the most flow through that. And 1950 and 51 were two of the worst years, dating back from I guess 2020 or 2019, whenever the most recent one was there. And the rest of the graph is just, it's obviously up and down, but there's no upward trend. So I don't feel like I don't feel it's appropriate to link climate change to an increase in flooding around the Salt Creek. In terms of actually doing things to help the Salt Creek, and the homes around it, I am against local spending to protect the homes that are there. Okay, the homes that are there, I feel like when they bought their homes, and I may be wrong on this, and my beliefs, I'm happy to change my beliefs when the facts change, but my understanding is when they bought their homes and built their homes there, that they would have known it was a floodplain. And if they knew it was a floodplain when they bought it, and they knew that they could have floods, then they're buying a home at a discount, knowing that that's a possibility in the future. And if that floodplain has been increasing, then I would be supportive of plans that would help the homes that were not originally in the floodplain, but now are. But I feel like people that bought it knowing that they're in a floodplain, that's a risk you take when you buy a home that's in those areas. And you get your flood insurance, or you can flood proof your home. Those are the options that exist for the current owners of those properties. Does that address the question?
Yeah, one question, actually, the question I've always been asking all the candidates, Eric, is regarding affordable housing. And one topic that continues to come up in these conversations is the idea of whether to build on the interior of town or build on the perimeter of town, for lack of a better word. And so how do you balance the needs for putting more housing, in particular more affordable housing, with the growth of Lincoln in general, and keeping those two things, keeping the existing residents and the new residents happy as both of these things continue?
Okay, yeah, so the outskirts of town right now, I think that's never going to be affordable housing. At least the price of the land out there, $80,000 to $100,000 for a lot, is I think the opposite of affordable for a lot of families. I know I would not jump at the opportunity to buy a lot for that much right now. But as we continue to move outward and families continue to build new homes, we would hope that they are moving out of their current homes. But I know in our current situation, the housing market has a low supply of homes, which has driven that price up, and houses go off the market very quickly. So that is an issue. And I don't know if that's a direct result of COVID. I don't know if that's actually plays a huge part in that. I know our city is growing, and I know as we build more multifamily units and more apartment complexes within the city, that should help with affordable housing. But I think most of the the apartment units that are going up around downtown. And those I would also not define as affordable. Those are going to be too expensive for lots of people around the city. I myself own property in the near south. I own a few rental units. And I've always thought of the near south as the area that college students and young professionals and young families move into and rent homes from. In fact, when I was less than 3, I lived in the near south before my parents bought a house, lived in a duplex there. And I think that it's been that way for a long time, and that it can continue to provide affordable housing for many people. The issue, of course, now is limited supply. And if we can look at rezoning lots, if we can look at the lots that are unbuildable because they're too small and address those, I think that would be good. I think that it's okay to do some upzoning on some older homes, to turn them into fourplexes, to turn them in from single family to fourplexes, to add more housing within our near south area. That's, I guess, the neighborhood I'm most familiar with right now. Yeah, and in terms of, just to go back to the climate thing, less regulations are going to lower the cost of housing, and I think that's really important, that we stop putting too much red tape on new construction. And now that I've thought of that, I've thought of the other very important point, which is our property taxes. It's hard for a landlord to rent a unit at an affordable price when property taxes are as high as they are. And a lot of that has to do with valuations, and valuations going up and up and up every year or every other year with really no explanation for why that's happening. And that's one of the things that I do want to accomplish with the accountability and transparency, with my software engineering, is working with the county assessor to actually build a system where homeowners and property owners can understand and see why their house has gone up in value, and to be able to actually contest those in a clear way. Most of the people that I've talked to around the city don't even know that they can contest that their value went up. And when you get values going up for arbitrary reasons, it's not really fair to the property owner to put them in a situation where they have to go fight that, go downtown to fight that their house went up $50,000 or their rental unit went up $70,000 from one year to the next. That's a significant increase in property tax, and that's going to translate directly to higher rent for the renters.
Well, we are closing in on 30 minutes, and I need to ask my last question because it's only fair. And my last question is, Eric, what were you ready to talk about, or that you wanted to talk about that we didn't ask about?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about anything.
Well, it could either be a topic we missed, or it could just be your closing pitch for why you're the best candidate.
Okay. Well, I think I'm the best candidate because I'm young, I'm ambitious, and I work hard. And I think that I've been successful at everything that I put my mind to doing. I really value being educated. As an educator myself, I've been teaching students. So part of my business is teaching, that I've been constantly learning. And that allows me to actually understand, I think, a lot of issues in a different perspective than others. I think having an international business, understanding education, running a business between two different cultures, this also gives me a unique perspective on how our city should work and what I can do to actually make our city a better place. Yeah, and then I guess, I can say that I really miss Husker games. If I could say just the one thing, that's what's on my mind right now, is I just really miss going to Husker games. I miss the active lifestyle. There's so much I miss from the last year that, just haven't been able to do a lot of. And I'm just hopeful that everybody's happy to get back to a normal life very, very soon.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for putting in the effort to run for office. The more people that run, the better ideas we get out there. So we appreciate everybody who invests that time and that effort. So we thank you a bunch, and we will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye-bye.